first few days of February. It's the 2nd of February. I think it's safe to say that, we're all back at work and the holidays are over and a thing of the past. But, when we are still thinking about how close they were, so close yet so far, we also think about, oh man, where's my next holiday going to be? We already started getting into the slump of things, and sometimes we can start facing mental fog, fatigue, disrupted routines, and increased stress around this time of the year. This transition also impacts our brain as well as our body, and it often leads to reduced performance and early burnout. Today, I'll be speaking to the founder and MD of Newtricion, Wellness Dietitians, Mr. Naidoo, who will explore how nutrition can act as a powerful reset, helping restore focus, balance energy levels, and support emotional well-being. Omi Naidoo joins us on the line. Thank you so much for your time, Omi.
And your listeners, and thank you for having me on the show.
When we think about just how much work we have to do, it's the early morning traffic, and we started getting into really the thick of things when it comes to work. We already started to fantasize when our next holiday will be. We're trying to mark it out in the calendar and looking forward to it because we're starting to feel a little tired. We can feel that, you know what, I really wish the holidays were still here. How does nutrition play a part and an impact in how we feel on a daily basis, especially with our work?
So the foods we eat or the items we fuel our body with has a direct impact on our ability to handle stress. It has a direct impact on the energy level that we possess through the day. But overall, food has an ability to increase anxiety symptoms, to increase depressive symptoms, as well as has the opposite effect where it could help to improve your mental health. So to answer your question, food plays a vital role. It goes a lot more than just the word sustenance, which means to survive. Food is something that can help us to thrive both at home as well as the workplace.
Well, speaking about surviving, usually at the beginning of the year, right, when we put our goals out there, a lot of us say we want to eat better. And so for the first few weeks as we're back to work, we do some meal prep, we carry a lunch to our work and we eat our little healthy thing with our little snacks here and there. But once we start getting into a slump of things, we also start forgetting to prepare that lunch. We don't feel like we have enough time. We're a little tired to meal prep, and then we start eating at the canteen. We start, getting takeaways with our colleagues during lunchtime at work, and we change our diets altogether. How does this irregular eating disrupt our routines? How does it affect our focus, our mood, and our energy?
Okay, so essentially what you're talking about is what many of us face. Just as you say it, this weekend I was chatting to my wife, and I've got this huge calendar on the wall asking, when are you planning our next break? It's February now, because I think we all start to feel the burnout sooner rather than later. So when we look at irregular eating patterns, when meals are irregular and sleep patterns shift over the holidays, our internal clocks, or what they call the circadian rhythm that governs sleep, hunger, and mood, they actually get thrown off. And this leads to poor concentration, low energy, as well as mood swings in the first few weeks back at work. Essentially, stress or celebratory eating spikes your glucose levels. You have a lot of fat in your food, and this then briefly boosts your mood for a short time, but then it's followed by a crash where your energy levels start to drop, and then you have another craving for something equally unhealthy. And this makes focus and productivity a lot harder in the workplace. So, irregular eating patterns directly contribute to how we feel, how productive we are, as well as how ready are we to take on the day's tasks.
Right. So what should we do? I mean, at the end of the day, we start thinking like, I don't actually have the time for the meal prep. Sometimes you look at your budget and like, I think the meal prep is very expensive. So I'll just keep eating at the canteen. The meals there are cheaper and, they're quicker to eat. It's just there in our building. So I'm going to be fine with that. How do we start changing our mindset when it comes to our nutrition and noticing the patterns of how that also affects our work?
So I think it's important to just seek professional help. There's an abundance of good dietitians, both in the government sector as well as the private sector, that want to walk that journey with individuals, meaning that there's no two solutions that work for everybody, meaning everybody's individualized. But just to start it off, you could think of simple, quick things that you could swap. We know that sugar is well known to be unhealthy because it increases your sugar levels, and that then affects your focus and concentration. And we know that sugar contributes to obesity over time. So swapping, could you swap out a sugary cereal in the morning for something with a lot of fiber, such as oats with fruit? Another thing is that we find a lot of patients tend to drink a lot of calories. So that's your cool drinks, your fruit juices. Could you swap that out for water and adding some lemon, or even just a herbal tea? In that way, you're cutting down on the calorie content. When we look at bread, rather than having white bread, swapping out to whole grain or brown. And then also the type of snacks we have around. Very often if we don't have snacks through the day, the go-to is a muffin or a donut at the canteen. So could you swap these out for some nuts, some seeds, some yogurt, even fruits as well as a healthy snack? And then the last one, as opposed to thinking of the healthy or the heavy lunches at the canteen, could you maybe pack something a little bit more healthier, which has a nice big protein portion? So that's your chicken or fish or beans, as well as some brown starch, so brown rice, brown pasta, or brown bread, with a bit of vegetables or salad. So just thinking about small things you could swap. I know that's a mouthful, but it's just essentially looking at what are the small things that you could change out for now.
How do we remain consistent here? Because that's also a huge issue that, we deal with. We take these tips and we're like, okay, buy some whole wheat bread this week, get in some fruits and vegetables as a snack. And then eventually when those run out, we go back to, the level that we were before, and whatever we were eating before, we tried this reset out. How do we remain consistent?
I think it's just to know that one of the easiest philosophies to use is the 80-20 principle, where, as long as 80% of the time you're doing well, the other 20% you can fall off the wagon. It's okay. The day that you open up your bread bin and you don't have whole wheat bread and you just have white, that's okay. But is there other ways that you can increase the fiber? Can you add a bit of lettuce to the sandwich? Could you have a lot more beans in that dish? It's just other ways that you can think about it. What research shows is that when people go cold turkey, inverted commas, where they just cut out things, big food groups in massive ways, that's not sustainable. And then very often they go back to their normal eating, and their weight then starts to plateau, go back up to where it used to be, or even higher than when they started. So when you look at sustainability, a big part of what dietitians do is that they formulate a solution that's going to work for you from now till your next follow-up appointment. It's taking that massive journey of health and wellness and breaking it up into monthly intervals or every 2 to 3 month intervals, so that you have an accountability partner.
All right, Omi, stay on the line. We are going to take a short break and we'll get more tips from you on how we can navigate our nutrition for our professional well-being as well. It's 20 minutes past 11 Central Africa time.
Africa, meet Abedi.
Yeah, that's me.
Abedi is a music lover through and through.
I really love African music.
He's got a taste for all kinds of tunes and spends his days listening to Channel Africa. Guess what? He didn't know.
Okay.
Channel Africa wants to help Abedi and all music lovers everywhere to discover even more incredible music. That is why Channel Africa is calling on all African musicians to submit their music. Musicians, remember to give us all your relevant information. Make your submissions at music@channelafrica.co.za. Submissions are your chance to be heard on radio. But sadly, they do not guarantee that you will be playlisted. All submissions will be carefully reviewed to see if they meet our station's requirement. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Keeping you on the know and on the move.
I think we're having a very helpful conversation this morning with Omi Naidoo, who is the MD and founder of Newtricion Wellness Dietitians. And we're looking at how professionals can reset at this time of the year by using their nutrition to boost productivity and well-being. Omi, let's go back into this conversation. Once you get a hang on things, so many different things can happen, especially in the work environment. You gave us an 80-20 rule. control, as long as we're doing great 80% of the time. In the 20% of the time when we're not feeling our best, when we feel like going back to our old habits, how can we navigate that tricky situation?
Yeah, so I think it's just about planning it. There's a saying, failing to plan is planning to fail. So just as you plan and schedule your work meetings and your tasks that you need to do, looking at your diet and the foods you eat and what you're not going to eat, planning it out, making sure you have those items available on hand, such as the healthy snacks, doing your meal prep, as we spoke about, where over the weekends you're trying to make sure that your fridge has all the raw ingredients that you need, prepping as much as possible in advance. These are all things that set you up for success, because once you become on default or on a reflex action, very often we end up in a fast food drive-through grabbing supper, and we all are guilty of that because the demands of the day are so extensive.
So, if we as professionals could change just one habit, because, sometimes when we try to change our entire lives, our entire nutrition overnight, that's where, things remain inconsistent. So, sometimes the way to start is just like one habit at a time, perfect that particular habit, do good at it, remain consistent at it, and then move on to adding another one. So, if we could just change one habit right now to improve our productivity, our well-being through our nutrition, what would that one habit be?
I think that one habit which would get the biggest bang for your buck, so to speak, is consistent meal timing. Eating at regular times trains your metabolism and your brain to stay alert. It improves your mood stability, as well as slows the stress and hormone spikes. So, overall, the routine trumps motivation, meaning that if at this time is your meal time, you plan for it, you prep for it, and also your body's glucose level starts to becoming a lot more regular, making you a lot more sharper and focused. So, consistent meal timing would definitely be that one thing for me.
How do we tell the difference between high energy foods and low energy foods? Because as we start feeling that, that slump, we look at our, fridge, we look at our cabinets and we're like, okay, I need something that's going to give me more energy, something that's going to get me through the days, through the 8 or however long I work in a day, but also that I don't get home and, crash immediately. How do we identify these different foods that will give us the kind of energy that we need?
So I think eating for sustained energy, we talk about the plate model as an example, where half your plate is either vegetables or salad. So there's a lot of fiber and roughage in that, and that keeps your sugar levels up for a long time, meaning you get sustained energy. A quarter of your plate is your protein, so your chicken, your meat, your fish. And a quarter of your plate is your starchy foods. So remember, the starchy foods is bread, rice, potato, pasta. Now, the big thing about sustained energy is the paradox is that when we have too large starch portions, so, the stuffed in with a whole lot of putu or a whole lot of rice, very often after that meal, you have a bit of an energy slump. And that's because there's too much of carbohydrates, too much of glucose. So eating for sustained energy is adhering to the plate model analogy. It's something that's simple, that can always be done. And then also just remembering that, the more you take things out of a box or things that are very processed, they very often have a lot of the good nutrition removed from it in order to preserve the shelf life. And those are normally items that don't have a very good sustained energy approach. So having more natural and more of a holistic diet can definitely help in terms of energy levels.
We'll leave it there. Omi, thank you so much for your time this morning and sort of helping us with our productivity. I think we all need it because we can't wait for the next holiday, but we also need to be as productive as possible and show up as our best selves, in our work environment. Thank you so much for your time. Where can we go to find out more about nutrition wellness dietitians?
Yeah, sure. So we offer bookings throughout the country virtually in the comfort of the patient's home. And that number is 033-342-1146. That's 033-342-1146. And our website is www.dietitians-sa, as in South Africa, .co.za.
Thank you so much. That's Omi Naidoo, founder and MD of Newtricion Wellness Dietitians. Newtricion is spelled Newtricion. So not the normal nutrition that you spell, just Newtricion. Let's keep things moving with a little bit more music before we go to our latest news.